how independent can your loved one with a developmental disability, an intellectual disability, or autism be? How do you assess the safety and capability of your loved one? So I want to help you thinking about how do you determine this? How do you determine how independent your loved one can be? And what constitutes a safe environment for them? So I want to give you 3 tips here on doing exactly that, assessing safety and capability for your loved one with an intellectual or developmental disability or autism. So all of this in light of helping your loved one to really be more independent. So let's dive into it here. Tip number 1 is that everyone can grow their capability. People with developmental disabilities are vastly underestimated, and the possibilities that are available for people with developmental disabilities is also underestimated. Whether it's ourselves overlooking our loved one's capability or other people overlooking our loved one's capability. So no matter your loved one's disability, they can grow and learn. And this is a fundamental belief that I really invite you to adopt. Now, this might look a little bit different and be different for your loved one compared to other people. And your loved one's pace of growth and learning might be different as well, but that's okay. And here's the thing, you're not really gonna know what your loved one's ceiling is in terms of growth. We don't know what your loved one's ceiling is in terms of their independence, but you're gonna get a better idea of that once you start being intentional about giving your loved one opportunities to grow and supporting your loved one's growth as well, okay? So it's hard to determine, what their potential is, what their ceiling is, but when we start giving them more opportunities and they're well supported to grow, we're gonna get a much better idea of that. Tip number 2 is that we all need support. No one does everything by themselves. And we all get a hand from time to time. It's really no different for your loved one. So I invite you to shift your thinking from my loved one has special needs. And I actually encourage you to delete that word from your vocabulary because it devalues your loved one. And instead think about it in terms of your loved one has individual needs, right? And we all have individual needs. You have individual needs, I have individual needs, so does your loved one. So when we think about our loved one's individual needs, we can think through what is the best way to meet those individual needs. And it can be your loved one maybe learning to support themselves in some ways, right? It could be maybe a family member doing some of that supporting of your loved one in specific ways, maybe around making decisions, for example. It could be a paid supporter, maybe if your loved one needs some help with personal care or other things maybe in the community. It could even be assistive technology, thinking about how can we best support our loved one. So again, we all need support. If these 2 tips have been helpful for you so far, I invite you to download my Life Planning 101 guide that's going to give you more tips and strategies on how to help your loved one build an awesome, ordinary life and build more independence in their life as well. So go ahead. The link's down for you below in the notes here. Go ahead and grab that. All right, tip number 3 is about creating a safe environment. So we talked about capability. How do we know how capable our loved one can be? We want to talk about now, how do we create a safe environment for our loved one? So when I say safe environment, this means something different to you, to the next person, to me maybe. So we want to understand that that means something different to everyone. And some common things that come up in terms of a safe environment is like, we don't want our loved one to be taken advantage of financially or online. We don't want something to happen with someone coming in the front door that shouldn't be coming in the front door. We don't want our loved one burning themselves or cutting themselves in the kitchen. So these are all different areas of safety or a safe environment that you might be thinking. So now that you're thinking about, well, what are those areas of safety that you're concerned about for your loved one? The next step is to determine, what exactly those vulnerabilities are. You can even write them down on a piece of paper. And then once you have them written down, you can start to safeguard each one of them individually. Because we can't just when we say safety is too big, it's too overwhelming, we need to break it down into the little individual elements to properly support our loved one. So let's say our loved one's vulnerable, letting strangers in the front door. You can start working on this now by teaching your loved one front door safety, right? Or maybe you can use assistive technology like a front door camera to assist with those interactions if needed. The key here is to get really specific on that safety vulnerability instead of just saying safety. Be specific. Front door entry, using the stove, using a knife. Then you can safeguard each one of those areas. So there are your 3 tips on assessing capability and safety. So the keys really here are, tip number 1, everyone can grow their capability. We don't really know our loved one's ceiling until we start really giving them opportunities and the right support. Tip number 2 is that we all need support, right? We can't just assume that full independence, if we want to call it that. We all need support, so it doesn't mean that your loved one's not going to need any types of support. I gave you some examples of support. And then tip number 3, creating that safe environment, thinking about your loved one's vulnerabilities, getting really specific, and starting to safeguard those vulnerabilities that are applicable and individualized to your loved one, because your loved one has individualized needs, not special needs. And let's eliminate special needs language because we don't want to devalue your loved one. So if these tips were helpful for you, I invite you to grab my Life Planning 101 guide, because it's full of additional tips and strategies for you that are going to help your loved one to build more independence with an awesome, ordinary life plan. So go ahead and get your copy by scrolling down, click on the link, and get your free copy. You've got this. I'm Eric Goll. Together, let's keep taking small steps forward.